How you doing?
How do you like my desk, my pod racer?
I like your desk. I can see why you're nervous. If I were sitting in a pod ready to go 500 miles an hour at any second.
That'd be scary.
That would be scary.
Unfortunately, this one doesn't actually move.
Oh.
We tried, it wasn't within our budget.
That's what they told you.
Yeah.
but they had us working on it, so it will take off at any second.
Oh, wouldn't that be thrilling? I could just fly around.
Just go right out there.
Think of the force I'd have with me then. I so love the message in that. And even in that, you know, what fear leads to and all that. Because really you do only have two choices in life, fear or love, right?
That's right.
Those are your only options. How'd you get so spiritually evolved? Because I really think that the messages in these movies are so profound.
Well, I think, you know, a lot of it is questions I asked myself when I was 10 years old and said, you know, what is the world like and why are things the way they are? And I think over the years, you know, came to the same conclusions that I came to when I was 10 years old, and I used some common sense. You know, I've read a lot about spiritual things, and, you know, it all comes down to the same thing. You know, God is love.
Right. And all-powerful in every way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's great to choose that, to choose the light. And I think that the way that you present it in this, because sometimes religion and those words frighten people away or are divisive amongst people in our society, but the way it's presented, the force, whatever way you perceive the force, to use it in your life for good.
Yeah, the idea is the force was really designed to give you a sense of what spirituality is all about and to think about it more than it was to sort of promote any particular religion.
Were you always into science fiction as a kid?
No. I don't know quite how I got into science fiction, actually, but I like to make up worlds. I like to create things, and I think I've always been fascinated by the mysteries of life and what's out there. And obviously, I grew up in the space age, so I couldn't help but love space.
What about like Star Trek? Were you into that as a kid? Did you?
I watched it once in a while, but you know, I'm a little older than Star Trek, you know.
Yeah, but still, it was on in the 60s. You were still, you
60s,
weren't...
I was in college.
Yeah, so you were still 4 before you became a filmmaker, really.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was, but I wasn't that much of a Star Trek fan. I'd watch it once in a while on television, but I wasn't like a Trekkie or anything.
Right. How old were you when you had that life-altering car accident?
I was 18. It happened 1 week before I was to graduate from high school. And I was a bad student and sort of didn't pay much attention to school, didn't do my homework. You know, my grades were pretty grim. And I had an accident that I should have been killed in, and I wasn't. And then, as I sat in the hospital, I sort of thought maybe I should do more with my life than become a car mechanic, which is what I was headed for. And you know, so I gave up car racing, which was my passion at that point, and decided to go to school. Went to college, studied anthropology, was interested in art. Eventually got to USC Film School, and you know, found that I made the discovery that was it. That was it for me. That was the thing I was born to do, was make movies. The second I got there.
American Graffiti was really all of the reflections of your childhood, of growing up?
Yeah, that was basically how I spent my high school years. I didn't do much in school, but I did spend a lot of time cruising.
Really?
Yeah. So I was doing, I used to always tell my father, I joked, you know, he said, you thought I was wasting all those years, and I was actually doing research.
Was it a strict home you were raised in? Was it very strict, very?
Not really, not really. My dad was fairly firm, and you know, it wasn't lax, but it was a very loving home, and it was there was a lot of freedom to be myself, and I was, you know, misunderstood, and I didn't realize exactly how much tension and pressure I put on my parents until I had a teenager myself, and.
It all shifts, doesn't it?
It is. It's the curse. Yeah, there is a curse. And,
it's the dark side.
It's the dark side. As bad as you were a teenager, it will come right back at you. You know, many years later, you'll get your own teenager to deal with.
Right, and you have 3 children.
I have 3 children.
And you took really like almost a 20-year. How long was the break that you took to raise your kids away from sort of?
Well, it was actually I stopped directing about 20 years ago, but once I finished Star Wars, the last Star Wars was when I adopted my first daughter, and so, you know, I really stopped. I didn't go back to Star Wars. I just ran my companies and kind of did more benign things, produced films and that sort of thing, so I could be with my kids.
Now, when you did adopt your first child, you said it was a life-altering experience?
Definitely, it was a life-altering experience.
So I've heard you speak of it, and I felt exactly the same way.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I wanted to have kids. You know, it was kind of a thing that you do, and everybody wants to have kids. I didn't really think too much about it, and I really couldn't have kids. So we decided to adopt. I was married at the time, and I held Tiger, who she's now known as.
Who was there, the opening announcer, in case you didn't put that together.
Announcer.
In case you thought there was another tiger floating around. There she is.
About an hour after she was born, and it was just like a lightning bolt went off. There's no way to describe exactly what the effect is when you hold a baby for the first time. That's your baby that you're responsible for, that's going to be dependent on you, that you have to raise, that's been given to you by, the fates or God or whatever. You just simply, it is a life-altering experience. It was as profound to me as being, surviving a car crash.
I felt as though, honestly, that I physically saw the world different. I physically saw colors brighter. I felt in many ways that I came alive when my son entered my life, in ways I hadn't known that I wasn't before him.
Well, before, I made movies. My life was movies, and that was what I did. I did it all the time. I thought about it all the time. And when I had my daughter, it shifted that priority. She was the most important thing in my life. Movies were second. And by shifting that priority, it calmed me down a lot. It made it so that I wasn't tense and nervous all the time, because what happens here was not as important as what happens at home. And it just made it much easier for me to make movies.
Yeah.
I could make movies, and I said, oh, yeah, it's fine. It'll be okay. So now I just, I worry more about my kids.
And you adopted 2 other children as a single parent?
Yes, a sweet little singer named Katie Rose, who I managed to get in a fender bender yesterday and scare me to death. But she's okay. She's fine.
Good.
She's fine. I was a little nervous last night. A lot of tension going on as I was calling the hospital to find out how everything was going. But she's fine. She just is in a neck brace now. She's back at school today, so that's
all her friends are signing it. She's okay.
Yes, she's okay.
The force was with her.
Yes,
exactly.
Definitely was with her.
And you have a little boy as well?
I have a little boy, Jet, who's 6 years old, who is, going to be the first man on Mars someday.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to talk about The Phantom Menace right after this break, so don't go away. It was really great. That Darth Maul. George, that Darth Maul is a scary, scary creature.
Definitely. We tried to get him as scary as we could, without being a monster with, his intestine hanging on his head or something.
Well, believe me, he was terrifying. Like, when he first appeared, I gasped at this. I was like, at the theater. No one noticed they were all sweating so much. It was a sauna, babe. I saw your movie in a sauna, but I still enjoyed it. That tells you how good it is.
Well, it's, it takes place in a desert. It's just that it's a very good movie.
Oh, yeah. Is that going to be across the country, a big theme, no air conditioning for the summer? That'll be a get them in the theaters, boy. Now, how did you come up with that? Did you just say to the people you worked, just think, give me the scary face?
Yeah, I described him, as a humanoid type character, but I wanted him to be very frightening. And so we were looking at sort of images of evil, and I asked one of the designers, I have like 3 or 4 designers that work for me while I write the script. I said, do a picture of the scariest thing you can think of when you were a kid, the thing that really scared you as a kid. Give me that image. And he came in the next day and he gave me this picture of Bozo. So I said, that's not going to work. I said, we have to come up with something else. So, it's, you just refine it and work on it and do a lot of research.
Do you know that when I was watching the movie, I was convinced that Darth Maul was actually Samuel Jackson, because Sam Jackson only has a few lines. And I thought, that's Sam Jackson. He has to have a bigger part. So I was telling everyone around me, especially the guy behind me who was narrating, I think that that's Sam Jackson underneath the makeup of the Darth Maul. I was positive. It's not.
No, it's definitely not.
There you go. Well, is he going to be in the next one?
Sam is an emerging character, as we call him.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he and Ewan McGregor are all emerging characters. They're going to be much bigger in the next film.
When is the next film?
The next film, unfortunately, is in 3 years. I wish it were 4, but as soon as I finish all this week here in New York, I've got to go back and start writing.
Wow.
And just go right on to the next one. I'll be working on the next one before this one even comes out.
What do you think about the people lining up outside of the theater, the people who lined up at FAO Schwartz and Toys R Us to get the toys first?
Well, that certainly wasn't expected. I don't, it's an amazing thing to be a part of that you just don't expect that to happen. The theaters, was to pay attention to the internet, so I knew that was sort of coming. And it's done in a kind of Woodstock way where everybody really just wants to have fun and wants to enjoy themselves and wants to stretch the moment as far as they can. So, that's a good thing, I think.
Jimmy, who's my friend who drives me to work, he is obsessed with Star Wars, and he can win any trivia contest. And he comes up with all of his life philosophies about Star Wars, usually in the car when I'm trying to sleep in the morning on the way here. And he told me yesterday, when you think about those teddy bear Ewoks, and you realize that they are really just little teddy bears, but yet their combined force was enough to defeat evil, it gives you power if you feel oppressed. That's Jimmy's take on it. It's good, right? You get that?
Very good.
Well, I want to thank you so much, not only for being here, but the premieres of all of the Phantom Menace all over the country will be, all the money raised will be given to children's charities, including the one in Chicago on May 14th for my foundation, and I thank you very, very much for that. Millions of dollars to be raised. And I just want to say, I really admire you in so many ways, and the force of good that you perpetrate with all the creative talent and power that you have is to be envied by everyone. So I thank you very much.
Thank you.
George Lucas,